The prairie wind moaned through the brittle grass, carrying the scent of rain that would never come. She stood on the porch, a chipped enamel basin in her hands, water sloshing as she stared toward the horizon. The sun, red and swollen, sank behind the far ridge, lighting the dry land in a dying glow. Her house half wood, half stubborn memory leaned against the wind like an old fighter refusing the bell. A horse's silhouette appeared first as a tremor, then a shape, then a man. He rode without hurry, his shadow long and deliberate. The sound of hooves broke the silence in dull, steady thuds that seemed to echo inside her chest. She set the basin down and wiped her hands on her skirt. When he reined in near the porch, dust rose around him like a halo. His hat shaded his eyes, but she could see the kind of man he was, made of leather, sun, and things left unsaid. He didn't dismount immediately, only looked at her as though measuring what kind of trouble she might be. "You're the daughter," he said. His voice was rough, but not unkind. She nodded once. The boards creaked beneath her bare feet. He reached into his coat and drew out a folded paper. "Your father owes money, a lot of it." Her jaw tightened. "He's gone, so I heard." He swung down from the saddle, boots crunching on the dry earth. "The debt remains." The words hung there, solid and heavy. She wanted to laugh at the absurdity. Debt, after all, was the only thing her father ever left behind. But the man before her didn't look like someone who could be mocked. He carried himself like someone who'd ridden through worse than refusal. "I've got nothing to give," she said quietly. "Not even this house. It's half caved in." He studied the place, then her face. "I'm not here for the house." "Then what are you here for?" The question cut the air clean in two. He didn't answer right away, just pulled off his hat, running a gloved hand through hair bleached by sun and dust. The silence between them thickened until it became almost intimate, like they stood at the edge of something neither of them wanted to name. Finally, he said, "Pack a bag." Her breath hitched. "You think I'm going with you?" His gaze lifted to meet hers, steady, unflinching, full of some unspoken resolve that made her pulse quicken. "I don't think," he said softly. "I know." The wind rose again, tugging at her hair, rattling the porch boards, whispering of faraway storms. Behind him, the dying sun framed his outline in firelight, turning the world gold and strange. She didn't move, not yet, but something in her, some buried, broken piece shifted toward him despite the fear. And when he turned his horse toward the road, waiting, she found herself stepping down into the dust. They rode in silence through a land that seemed carved from bone and heat. The sun rose behind them, turning the plains into an ocean of gold and dust. Her hands ached from gripping the reins, but she would not ask to stop. Pride had kept her alive this long, and she would not trade it for comfort now. The cowboy rode ahead, a silhouette of purpose and restraint, every movement measured, every glance unreadable. She did not ask where they were going. He did not offer. The unspoken stretched between them, taut as wire. Sometimes he slowed his horse so they rode side by side, and she caught glimpses of his profile, sharp, wind-worn, eyes the color of ash before rain. There was something lonely about the way he held himself, Like a man who'd spent too long listening to ghosts, by midday they stopped near a dry creek bed. He handed her a canteen, his fingers brushing hers. The touch was brief, but it left a mark deeper than either would admit. "Drink," he said. She obeyed, the water tasting faintly of tin and distance. "Why me?" she asked finally. "My father's gone. There's nothing left to take." He stared at the horizon, jaw working as if grinding down a truth too bitter to speak. "Debts have ways of finding the living," he said, "and sometimes they collect what can't be counted." His answer stung, but beneath the hardness she heard something else, a fracture, small but real. She wondered what he'd lost, and to whom. They rode again as shadows lengthened, the wind rising to whisper round them. Coyotes cried somewhere beyond the ridges. She thought of her father, the smell of whiskey on his breath, his laughter loud for the size of their house, the promises that came apart like cheap thread. The shame burned in her throat. Maybe this journey was her inheritance. Not gold, not land, but reckoning. That night they camped under a canopy of indifferent stars. He built a small fire, coaxing flame from stubborn twigs. She sat across from him, the orange glow painting his features in soft defiance. He moved with precision, like a man used to surviving with little. "Do you always take people's daughters?" she asked, her tone sharp enough to draw blood. He looked up slowly, one brow lifting. "No," he said, "just the ones who remind me what I've done." The fire cracked between them, throwing sparks into the night. Neither spoke again. When she finally lay back on her blanket, she stared at the stars until they blurred. Somewhere close, his quiet breathing steadied, rhythmic as the tide she'd never seen. Before sleep claimed her, she thought she heard him murmur something, words half swallowed by the wind. It might have been her name. It might have been a prayer. Whatever it was, it settled deep in her chest, where fear and something softer began to live side by side. The storm found them before dawn, rolling out of the hills like an army of ghosts. The sky turned the color of iron, and the air thickened with the scent of wet earth and lightning. He led the horses toward an abandoned church that rose from the prairie like a forgotten prayer. Its steeple leaned, its roof half gone, but the stone walls still held against the wind. Inside, they took shelter among broken pews and the silence of things once holy. Rain hammered the roof, dripping through cracks to form shallow pools. She pulled her shawl tight, teeth chattering, while he lit a small fire from scraps of hymnals and splintered wood. In the flickering light, his face looked older, lines cut deep by years of sun and consequence. He moved stiffly, his left arm bound in a strip of cloth dark with dried blood from the skirmish two nights before. She had cleaned the wound, but he hadn't thanked her. He didn't need to. The act itself had spoken enough. "You're not just a collector," she said finally, her voice low but steady. "You ride like someone running from something." He gave a quiet laugh, more breath than sound. "Aren't we all?" The words should have ended it, but something in his tone pulled her closer to the truth. She studied him, the way he avoided her eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the small tremor in his hand when he reached for the fire. "You knew my father," she said. It wasn't a question. He hesitated, then nodded. A long time ago, we worked the same cattle trail. He had charm, a gambler's grin, but he played too many games with the wrong men. Her stomach twisted. And you're one of them? His eyes met hers, grey and unflinching. No, but I rode for them once. I collected debts that should never have been taken. Your father owed a man I used to serve. When the job came up, I thought I could end it clean. Make it right. You call this right? She rose, trembling with rage and something she couldn't name, dragging me from my home, waving his sins in my face. He stood to, the space between them charged like the storm outside. I came to take what was owed, he said softly, but I saw you and I couldn't. For a long moment, neither moved. Rain hissed through the rafters, and the firelight danced across their faces, anger, sorrow, and something dangerously close to longing. Then she stepped forward, her hand rising before she could stop it, fingertips brushing the scar along his jaw. You're a fool, she whispered. Probably, he murmured back, and the distance between them vanished. The kiss came like lightning, sudden, searing, unstoppable. Outside, thunder broke over the plains, shaking the old church to its bones. When it was done, they stood breathless in the glow of the dying fire. Knowing the storm had only just begun. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving the land washed clean and raw. The air smelled of mud and smoke, and the church stood quiet behind them like a grave they were both walking away from. He saddled the horses in silence, his movements slow but deliberate. The wound on his arm had opened again, blood seeping through the bandage. But he said nothing. She noticed, of course, and when she reached to help, he only shook his head. We're going back, he said. Her heart sank. To town. He nodded once. It ends there. It has to. The ride back felt heavier than before, every mile a reckoning. The town appeared at midday, crouched in the distance, like something waiting to be judged. Dust rolled through the streets, and the saloon doors flapped idly in the wind. People watched them arrive, eyes following the pair like vultures waiting for the fall. He dismounted first, tying his horse to the post with steady hands. Stay outside, he said, voice low but firm. She didn't answer. He walked through the saloon doors, and she followed anyway. Inside, the air hung thick with smoke and cheap whiskey. 3 men sat at a table near the back, hard faces, colder eyes. The one in the middle smiled when he saw him. Didn't think you'd come back, cowboy, he drawled. You owe me a debt of your own. The cowboy's hand hovered near his holster, calm as still water. I'm not here to owe, he said. I'm here to pay. The man laughed, showing teeth. With what? That girl's not worth her father's mistakes. The words sliced through her like glass. She stepped forward before she could stop herself. You talk too much, she said, her voice steady even as her pulse roared in her ears. The first gun fired before the last syllable left her mouth. Chaos erupted, splintered wood, shattered glass, smoke curling like serpents. He moved fast, faster than she'd ever seen, returning fire with deadly precision. She ducked behind the bar, grabbed a fallen revolver, and fired once. One shot, one scream, and the man who'd spoken fell silent. When the dust settled, The room stank of blood and burnt powder. He stood in the middle of it all, chest rising hard, the gun still smoking in his hand. Then he staggered, catching himself on the bar. She ran to him, pressing her hands against his side where the bullet had grazed deep. "It's done," he said through clenched teeth. "You're free now." She shook her head, eyes fierce with something beyond fear. "Not without you." Outside, dawn broke clean and merciless, spreading light across the town's broken heart. He managed to smile small, tired and entirely real. She helped him onto his horse, climbed up behind, and together they rode toward the horizon. Behind them, the saloon smoldered. Ahead, the sky stretched wide and endless, a promise yet unspoken. Somewhere in that vast silence, she realized the debt had been paid not in gold, not in blood, but in the choice to keep riding.